Welcome to Growing Bremerton Together with Mayor Lent. My special guest today is Karen Vargas. She is a multicultural mentor and youth advocate, as well as working with New Life Leadership and a very strong supporter of the Marvin Williams Activities Center. Stay with us. Welcome to Growing Bremerton Together with Mayor Lent. My very special guest today is Karen Vargas, and she is involved in so many organizations, but Living Life Leadership and the Marvin Williams Activities Center is something we're going to learn more about today. Welcome, Karen.
Well, thank you, Mayor Patty. This is wonderful.
We want to learn about your heritage and how you landed in Kitsap County. So, as a little baby, where were you born?
I was born in Richmond, Virginia. Mm-hmm. And I grew up there, and my dad received a job on the East Coast. So we migrated up to Connecticut, Willimantic, Connecticut. We lived there for almost 15 years. Mm-hmm. And so when I moved there, I was kind of taken aback because it was a different community than the one in which I grew up in.
Right.
And it was predominantly European American. Mm-hmm. And so that was a transition for us too. But during the time we lived there, the demographics kind of changed. A lot of Hispanics, a lot of Puerto Ricans, mm-hmm. and a lot of African Americans started migrating to that area right outside of Hartford, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm. Did you go to school there, like
yes,
formal
I
education?
Did. Yes, I did. I was at Kramer Middle School, and I was at Wyndham High School, and I graduated from Wyndham High School, and did 1 year at UConn, up in Storrs, Connecticut, because mm-hmm. it was right up the street from us. So, I got a scholarship to go.
Wonderful.
But I was kind of a wild little girl. I didn't really value the scholarship that I was given. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I always talk to the young people about, is really giving them an understanding of their opportunities and not to waste them. So
I talk about the same things when we're talking to students. As far as siblings, do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have a brother. He's deceased now. Mm-hmm. And I have a sister, and both of them are older than I am. I'm the baby. I'm the sibling mm-hmm. Of all of them.
How did you meet your husband? Because I know that's how you ended up in Kitsap.
Well, yes. I was in the Army, mm-hmm. And I had just returned back from Europe. I had gotten a car accident over in Europe, and I was at the naval subbase mm-hmm. in Groton, and because I was on what you call TDRL, which is a temporary disability retirement list. Mm-hmm. And so I was there doing my physical therapy and everything, and I ran into this gentleman. He had said something to me. He said, "Oh, so he stood you up, huh?" And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, what a jerk." And I was like, I don't believe he said that to me. He doesn't even know me. And he came back and said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought you were my roommate's girlfriend. When I looked at you, you favored her so much." So we sat there for the rest of the evening. I allowed him to apologize over and over again. And so we just had a wonderful conversation, and we just hit it off, and he called me every day after that. And so he ran me down until I finally gave in and told him I would marry him.
So being in the Navy, Bremerton is an automatic base for anyone in the Navy to land.
Yes.
And being a beautiful spot that we live in. But you ended up in Bainbridge Island.
Yes. I mean, when my husband first told me, "Oh, we've got housing," and I said, "Whatever you get, I don't care. As long as you get the housing and we get there, take it wherever it is." Well, we didn't have a clue where
distance was.
The distance from the Bangor subbase to Bainbridge was. And so when they said, oh, we've got housing on Bainbridge, we just took it because, you know, we wanted to be together and we wanted to move out. So once he got that, I was like, where are we? And I said, boy, this is kind of far from the base that you have to go to every day. But when we got there, the community was so, again, it was very different.
Challenging.
It was very challenging. Our children was one of the only African American students in the district.
In the school.
Yeah, and it was very, I mean, they had a lot of challenges.
Now we're talking about 1992.
Yes.
So even though that seems a shorter distance,
Yes.
it still was, look at all the things that have transpired since then. But it's because of your children that you became so involved.
Oh, yes.
Name just a couple of the things besides our YWCA,
Yes.
the NAACP,
Yes,
but the things on Bainbridge that you were instrumental in merging these different ethnic groups
Yes.
and making everyone feel welcome.
Well, we worked with a club called the United Brothers and Sisters. And we met with ESL students, English Second Language, students that were migrating in, students that came from quite a diverse population. And so we would meet with the students. We were talking about some of the barriers, some of the challenges. And so my daughter decided, Mom, you know, we don't even have a Martin Luther King assembly, you know. And I said, well, why don't you go to the superintendent and go to your principal and ask them if you could do that. So my daughter, she was part of Living Life Leadership, so she took that on as one of her service learning projects. And so she had to involve the student body, she had to involve the clubs, she had to involve the principal as well as the administrators in that process. And so it was a real learning for her and the other students that was involved on how to facilitate and how to have youth voice, and then how to advocate for the things that you want to change. And so got immersed in that work and worked with the Native American Club when we have there Christina Piatto, and we have Maria Rivera that does the UBS, and also work on the Multicultural Advisory Council. I saw that when I got there in 1992, I can remember meeting Frank Kitamoto. I had gone into the school and he was there, and he was setting up one of his exhibits on the internment.
Yes.
And I was so fascinated because I had no knowledge that even
Took place on that island.
Yes, right where we were. And so I began doing work with Frank and going to the schools and showing the slide presentations of the internment and having to leave their island. I was so empowered by Frank really wanting others to understand about his culture and some of the challenges and some of the things that he spoke about, being comfortable in your own skin, and how difficult it was when he was growing up on the island.
Right.
When the war broke out.
Right.
And even though he was an American, he wasn't seen as that anymore.
Lots of our history for Kitsap County focuses on Bainbridge Island and what happened to our Japanese population. They were taken to all the internment camps. Lots of things have happened. George Moriarty has done wonderful things, and they've got a museum, they've got lots of memorials, things that really bring back some of that history.
Well, one of the things that Frank always said to me is that, Karen, if we don't teach it, then they won't know, and we don't want this to ever happen again.
Exactly. It's more preventative.
Yes. So a lot of intervention and prevention with history, and that's why I really was so passionate about doing the hidden history and really bringing that history to surface and let them know the contributions, and then the challenges that we had to face.
We're going to talk about the hidden history, but I want to tie in what you did on Bainbridge for Martin Luther King naming a street,
Yes.
and how instrumental you were in our city of Bremerton,
Yes.
and the youth that are
Yes.
involved. That's a pretty exciting tale.
Yes,
So
it is.
at the school, I believe your daughter was also involved in
Yes.
selecting a street,
Yes.
having everyone come together and have that celebration.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about with the street naming project, one of the UBS students that was at the school district, she said, I want this to be our service learning project, that we take this initiative and we have a street named after Martin Luther King right here on our campus. And so the students took lead in that. We were just there to support them, and that's what we do with Living Life Leadership and with UBS. We just there to give them all the resources, all the support, and all the help that they need. But the passion has to be theirs.
You're right.
And we help shepherd that, and we help them through that.
So living on
process.
Bainbridge and raising your children and doing the things that affect your neighborhood and community,
Yes.
but you do a lot of work with New Life
Yes, I
and
do.
leadership, and you're in our city.
Yes,
So
I
I'm
am.
going to bring you down to our city, and the students that are involved with Embassy and
Yes.
Apostolic Bishop Robertson's
Yes.
church, but not just his church. It's the
No.
AME, it's the Baptist.
Sinclair.
It is. It's everyone, and all the faith-based
Yes.
communities. So that one church, one family encompasses all. So they're down there and they're saying, well, you know, Bremerton doesn't have a street. And it
That's
really
right.
was, this was a groundswell. People say, well, mayor and council, you're just picking a street. We had 2 years
Yes.
of involvement,
Oh, yes.
discussions, and I think it was Faye Flemster and Greg Wheeler at the
Greg
time.
Wheeler, yes.
It was their district, and they went to every single household.
Oh, yes.
They talked to the neighborhood, and they said, we're looking at having a street named and joining the rest of the world, kind of.
Yes.
We always celebrate Martin Luther King Day.
Yes.
It's been 23 years,
Oh, yes.
and it's been sponsored by the AME
Yes.
Church, Episcopal Church, and so Bremerton, Kitsap County, everyone's been involved. Ebenezer.
Yes.
And so when they came to the mayor's office, we
Yes.
met with the city council, and they had a petition, and they
Yes.
talked about what they wanted to do.
Yes.
It was tough to pick that street, wasn't it?
Oh my God, the challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were so many challenges with the demographics. They said it was too short. They said that, you know, that there were some of the, and I would just say this, some of the resistance that was there for the naming of that street. And the young people, they got discouraged at one point, but guess what? They picked up the banner.
They did.
And they said, this is not about us. This is about our community. They said, we have to have the Martin Luther King right down here off of Park, because this is where
It started.
a lot of our history started. We have the first African American church that was built that's down here. We have the YWCA that was founded by the Lillian Walker and all of the women that was down there. We also have there the first time that there was even African Americans that came through the shipyard,
Right.
that resided down there.
It was called, and it was Faye Flemster, that our councilwoman, at one time it was called the Hood.
That's right.
And I didn't know back in the 40s that we were a segregated city.
oh yes.
That we had, we were part of that bigger, you think of the South and Montgomery, all the things that had the beginning of making changes, but every part of the world, or in our United States, had little pockets, and we were one of those. So what we learned is that Pacific is a main street, and Warren Avenue is a main street,
Yes.
and that Dr. MLK Way
Yes.
runs, you see that sign when you go down those main streets, And it also is the answer to Dr. Martin Luther King's dream.
Yes.
The changes that are going to be made, because that's where we already have a teen center.
Oh, yes.
We already have programs for youth of all ages,
That's
color,
right.
and
That's right.
ethnic background. And we're going to have the Marvin Williams Activities Center.
Oh, yes. Now, I really want to talk about that Marvin
Okay.
Williams Center. We have the Oprah Robertson Teen Center that we work with the Living Life Leadership students. Now, these students, we take them to do leadership training all over the nation. They've gone to Tennessee. They've mapped the homeless. They came back. They've presented at the Human Rights Conference.
Yes.
They've come back. They've also have presented down at OSPI when we're talking about the achievement gap of students of color.
Yes.
They also met with Bishop Desmond Tutu.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and they also have met with presidents, and I mean, the exposure and the opportunity that they have been given. I mean, when they met with President Clinton, they were overwhelmed that they were in the same room with our president and was able to shake his hand. One of our students said, "Oh man, he's got the softest hands in the world." But for them to have the opportunity to sit down and meet with leaders of this magnitude,
You're right.
and have them have conversation and even work on initiatives alongside them, is something that they will never forget.
And one thing you're instrumental is you take not only traveling with them and giving this as exposure,
Yes.
but when they come back, they present to the rest of the students
Yes.
their different classes,
Oh, yes.
the gems, everything that they're
Yes.
involved in,
Yes.
and it's like train the trainer. They pass on that celebration and those
yes.
exciting things so that we all can think, one day I'm going to do that.
That's exactly right. Because what they have to do is they have to do leadership training, but they also have to do service learning, social and cultural competency initiatives.
You've got a program that encompasses all of that.
Oh, yes. The Living Life Leadership, they have to do that because that's part of their National Youth Leadership Training, that they have a component which they call taking it back home. Well, what is taking it back home? You have to make changes and transform your communities. When you go back, you have to look at your community, map your community, and find out what are some of the challenges that you need to be working on that will change your community for health and wellness, for outcomes.
All of those students, especially the ones that wanted to rename the street,
Yeah.
were at the ribbon cutting. And I know my remarks included, it's our youth today
Yes.
that are going to be the leaders tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
And so all the things that they impart to each other
Yes.
and for us, they're learning
yes.
from all of us.
But one of the other initiatives that they've been working on over these past years is that Marvin Williams Community Center, because they have said, we don't have a community center.
Not in the West Side.
We have a diverse community, but we don't have a community center where we can call our own, that we can begin to work on really some of these things that we can change our community from the inside out. And for them to take ownership with that, it just warmed my heart that our young people, our future, saying we need something and we have to have voice and we have to be at the table when we are expressing what we have need of. And that was
I agree.
so important.
And you've got a capital campaign.
Yes.
I understand that by June there's
Yes.
going to be some groundbreaking.
Oh, yes,
we've
going
had a
out.
soft groundbreaking because Marvin Williams came back.
Oh, yes.
During the time that he jumped over to the Eagle in Las Vegas.
Oh, yes.
And then they wanted him back at
Oh,
his
yes.
original. He is a remarkable man.
I
and
can tell you Marvin has come back. He's so excited.
Yes.
I mean, this was one of his passions, to be able to
Give
have a
back.
community center, to give back to those young people, to invest in those Bremerton Jaguars, and to begin to build those young people from a very young age.
like he was.
Oh, yes. I mean, to have them start doing some of these things at the age of elementary.
You're one of his aunties. because that is an endearment for anyone, and in the church everyone raises.
Oh yes,
and
it's a
they're
village.
part of it. Is a village. The capital campaign that we mentioned is You're a Little Shy, about $700,000. Normally we don't, we always want to support things that are going on in the community, but if there's an opportunity for someone to reach out, we're going to have on our screen a contact for you, Karen, and a contact for the Marvin Williams Activities Center.
Yes.
So if someone wants to say, I believe in that and any help that I can do, we want that to happen.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about your wonderful colors. You're on your way to a true African wedding in Texas.
In Texas.
And beautiful.
One of my youth leaders, she is getting married. And she's getting married to a young man from Africa. They're all flying in from all over the world.
Yes.
From Africa, they're coming in from all over the United States, they're coming in from Europe. I mean, they're coming in to support this wedding. And this is the first time we have really been involved in an African traditional.
Oh my God, you're going to have this filmed, I hope.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we can show that on BCAT sometime. That would be very exceptional.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Now, you also have a beautiful fan. That was a gift.
Yes, this was a gift given to me by the students of Bainbridge High School, our UBS and our Native American students. They presented it to me this past Martin Luther King Assembly for all of the work and the labor of love that I have worked with those students over the past 20 years.
It isn't just this award. Karen, you have been awarded Woman of Achievement in 2009. You have been awarded the Birkenfeld, and I don't know the full title, but something that has such strong meaning as appreciation for your involvement and the things that you've passed on. You're more than a parent, you're more than a mentor, but your outreach is exciting. I've always asked people on Bainbridge, look south. You're the one person that I've become a good friend with, that you do look south, and you've attached us. Everything that goes on in the entire county, you have a fingerprint on.
Well, I don't know.
Well, you do.
All over. But
And the things that they're going to see, little snippets as we've been talking, the history that you've involved with, and because we've had 5 years of awards for African American awards. It's Deborah Jackson. You've worked with her, I think, from day one.
Yes.
A remarkable, energetic, just like you are, and she is tenacious.
Yes.
She has people all over the state, not just Bremerton, not just Seattle, and the awards that they've gotten, you've helped her in the research because of this history.
Yes.
Before we close, the history that you've brought to life that is going to be in the Marvin Williams,
it's
will. Part of that decor. It's going to have as much a museum as it is the activities and the classrooms. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in developing that history.
Well, I started years ago when I first moved here, because I saw that we didn't have a lot of African American history that was available here in the county. And so I was like, oh my gosh, we have to be celebrated. So I started digging up the history. I started saying, okay, we were here, so where were we, and what did we do, and what contributions did we make to building this county and this community? So I started with that, and then when it was 2 years ago that I went back home for my aunt's funeral, and I was given an old family album.
Oh my!
And it was filled with tin portraitures. And as I began to open it up, it was in such terrible condition, and it was crumbling in my hands. And I said, "Oh, I'm destroying
Nervous,
this."
yeah.
And I said, "Okay." I stopped right there. I called the Virginia Historical Society and the Virginia Union, and I said, "What can I do?" They said, "Oh my gosh, bring them down." So I brought the photos down to the Historical Society and worked with the university there, and they were able to save 86
Oh my goodness.
of those portraitures and put them on TIFFs. And when I saw them, I was so overwhelmed by the incredible history that we had in portraitures. They said it was one of the largest collection of portraitures that they had seen of African Americans that was very well off.
And so you captured history.
Yes.
And they didn't take portraits, especially of African Americans. It would have been the pomp and circumstance, or somebody of a totally different culture.
A different culture. And that was a culture, or that was something that had not really been presented in the African American community, because we were always portrayed as being an enslaved people.
Right. We remember that in our own local history.
Yes. And yes.
Well, you've brought a whole new concept to not just African Americans, but the people that are being mentored, our youth today that are growing up. I can't thank you enough for being my guest. I wish you excitement at this African wedding.
Yes.
We hope that we can have and see on BCAT the results of that.
Yes.
And again, Karen, you've been a pleasure to be with. She is stalwart in our community, and we thank you again.
Thank you.
I thank you, audience, for staying with us this time. I'll see you next time with Growing Bremerton Together and Mayor Patty Lent.